Silence is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood behaviors in relationships. When a woman stays silent even though she misses you, it's not always an act of indifference or emotional detachment. It's often a test of strength, patience, and emotional maturity. Many men make the mistake of assuming that if she's not reaching out, it means she no longer cares. But in truth, her silence might be the very thing revealing how she feels. Women, by nature, are emotionally intelligent and deeply intuitive. They can sense desperation, weakness, and insecurity the moment a man starts chasing validation instead of standing firm in his value. When she goes quiet, it's often to see if you will panic or stay centered in who you are. That silence becomes a mirror, one that reflects your character back to you. If you're the kind of man who crumbles the moment you're ignored, she knows your strength was only an illusion. But if you remain calm, composed, and focused on your purpose, she sees something deeper, a man who doesn't depend on her attention to feel complete. And that kind of man stands out, because true masculinity isn't about chasing. It's about leading through stability. It's about showing without words that your life doesn't fall apart in her absence. Your silence, like hers, can become a message, one that says, I don't need you to validate me. I'm already whole. When a woman stays silent, she's often wrestling with her own emotions. She might miss you, but she also remembers moments of disappointment, emotional imbalance, or insecurity that came from the connection. In that silence, she's watching whether you'll revert to your old patterns, the ones that may have pushed her away, or whether you'll hold steady in your newfound strength. Every time you resist the urge to text, call, or beg for attention, you're sending a silent signal that speaks louder than any words. You're telling her that you've learned to master your emotions instead of being controlled by them. In today's world, most men are reactive. The moment they feel a woman pulling away, they chase her harder. They text paragraphs, over-explain, and beg for closure. But the men who truly command respect are those who know when to let go, when to hold space, and when to remain silent. This is not a game, it's emotional discipline. A woman may miss you deeply, but she won't return to a man who lacks control. She'll return to the one who has transformed his silence into strength, because silence isn't emptiness, it's energy. It's presence. It's the space that allows attraction to breathe again. There's also a psychological layer to this. Women instinctively test to see if a man's affection is stable or conditional. Will he crumble if she withdraws? Will his world stop spinning without her attention? When you stay strong through the quiet, she realizes you were never depending on her approval to define your worth. That realization shifts her perception of you. She begins to feel respect again, and respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. It's crucial to understand that silence, when used correctly, isn't manipulation, it's maturity. It's choosing not to engage in emotional chaos. It's letting time and space do what words often can't. When she misses you, she feels a pull, but when she sees that you're not desperate for her return, that pull becomes magnetic, because she knows she's dealing with a man who values himself enough not to chase love, but to attract it naturally. So when a woman stays silent, don't take it as rejection. See it as an opportunity, a chance to demonstrate calm strength, self-control, and emotional growth. Let your energy speak in your stead. Let your focus on your mission, your purpose, and your peace remind her why she was drawn to you in the first place. Her silence is her way of stepping back to see if you'll rise. And if you do, that very silence, the one you once feared, will become the bridge that leads her back to you. Emotional distance has a way of revealing truths that constant closeness can often hide. When a woman pulls back and chooses silence, she's not necessarily trying to end the connection. She's allowing space for perspective. It's in that space that real desire begins to grow. When emotions are intense, when communication is constant, and when attachment feels overwhelming, people often lose sight of what they truly feel. But distance brings clarity. It creates a vacuum where feelings echo louder. The more she tries to distract herself, the more she starts to feel the quiet reminder of your absence. That's the paradox of silence. The further apart you are, the more deeply she feels what's missing. A woman's decision to stay silent can be both emotional self-protection and emotional testing. She wants to see how you handle uncertainty. Do you collapse without her reassurance, or do you stand tall in your purpose? Because a man who cannot handle distance is a man who lacks internal stability. Emotional distance is not meant to punish you. It's meant to recalibrate attraction. Every relationship goes through cycles of intensity and separation, closeness and quiet. The difference between those that survive and those that collapse lies in how the man handles the silence. When you stay patient and grounded, you signal confidence. When you chase or panic, you signal fear. And fear kills attraction faster than anything. Desire is not born in constant availability. It's born in moments of reflection, imagination, and longing. When you step back, she begins to wonder. Her mind replays the memories, the conversations, the little moments that once felt ordinary but now feel irreplaceable. She starts to compare your presence to the absence she's feeling now. And in that comparison, she often realizes that your energy had a weight, a calmness, and a sense of direction she can't easily find elsewhere. Emotional distance forces her to confront her own feelings, the ones she might have been ignoring while everything felt too familiar or too easy. The most confident men understand that space doesn't weaken connection. It strengthens it if handled with maturity. They don't rush to fill the silence because they know that attraction thrives on uncertainty. You don't need to remind her you exist when your absence already does that for you. You don't need to beg for attention when your stillness becomes a mystery that pulls her closer. It's human nature to want what feels scarce. When you remove yourself, when you stop over-communicating, she begins to feel that scarcity. That's when her curiosity awakens. That's when desire slowly returns. Emotional distance also allows you, as a man, to reset your own energy. Instead of obsessing over why she's quiet, you use that time to focus on yourself, your goals, your health, your peace. That shift in focus changes your vibration completely. You go from chasing love to embodying it, and that difference is magnetic. A woman senses when a man is content within himself. She feels when his attention isn't desperate but disciplined. And that discipline makes her feel safe, drawn, and intrigued all over again. It's often said that absence makes the heart grow fonder, but that only holds true if the absence is filled with growth, not resentment. If you spend the time becoming a better, calmer, more purpose-driven version of yourself, her mind will eventually wander back to you, not because of manipulation, but because she'll sense your energy has evolved. The same silence that once tested you becomes the silence that reconnects you. So when she goes distant, don't rush to close the gap. Let the emotional distance do its work. Let her feel the difference between your presence and your absence. When you hold your ground with quiet confidence, the balance of attraction naturally resets. She begins to realize that missing you isn't something she can just suppress. It's something she has to feel and eventually act upon. In that moment of recognition, emotional distance transforms from separation into desire, and silence becomes the spark that reignites connection. Masculine energy isn't loud, reactive, or desperate. It's calm, steady, and self-assured. When a woman pulls back or stays silent, most men panic because they tie their sense of worth to her attention. They start chasing, explaining, or trying to fix what doesn't need fixing, but true masculine energy doesn't chase chaos, it creates order through stillness. A man grounded in his purpose doesn't need to react to emotional turbulence. He understands that his strength isn't proven by words or by trying to control outcomes. It's proven by his ability to stay calm, patient, and composed when things are uncertain. That quiet steadiness communicates more power than any argument or confession ever could. Women are deeply attuned to emotional energy. They notice how a man handles pressure, rejection, and silence. When she steps back, she's subconsciously observing whether you can lead emotionally or whether you fall apart. A man who stays composed through her silence shows that his confidence doesn't depend on her validation. And that's exactly what rekindles her respect and attraction. Emotional control isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being centered. It's the ability to hold your ground without letting temporary emotions dictate your actions. When you stay grounded, you become the anchor in a world of emotional storms. You don't need to chase her to make her see your value. Your composure does that for you. Every time you resist reacting, you're sending a message that says, I'm not afraid of space. I trust the process. That trust comes from strength, and strength is the essence of masculine energy. Women are naturally drawn to that. It makes them feel safe, not because you're forceful, but because you're stable. A man who can handle silence without losing his peace is a man who understands himself. This kind of stillness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that love and attraction can't be forced. When a woman goes quiet, your job isn't to chase her into communication, it's to stay consistent in who you are. You continue living your purpose, improving your life, and nurturing your peace. That energy radiates confidence. It tells her you're not shaken by uncertainty because you've built your foundation from within. The more you maintain that emotional composure, the more she starts to feel your presence even in your absence. There's a spiritual element to masculine stillness too. It's not about suppression, it's about mastery. You don't deny your emotions, you observe them, understand them, and then act with intention instead of impulse. That's what separates men who attract healthy, lasting relationships from those who live in emotional chaos. The silent, grounded man communicates through his energy, not his words. He doesn't need to prove anything because his peace speaks for him. When you stay calm and collected during her silence, she begins to reflect. She starts to notice that your reaction isn't what it used to be. The man who once over-explained or reached out impulsively now seems focused, disciplined, and emotionally independent. That shift creates curiosity. She wonders what changed. She feels a renewed respect because she sees growth. And in many cases, that's when she starts to miss you, not because you begged for her attention, but because your stillness reminded her of what she lost. Every strong man learns that silence is a form of leadership. You don't lead by controlling someone else's emotions. You lead by mastering your own. You can't inspire calm in her if you're drowning in your own chaos. When you stay still, confident, and unfazed, your energy creates balance. It tells her that you can handle life's storms without needing constant reassurance. That kind of strength doesn't push women away. It draws them in. So when she goes quiet, don't fight it. Step deeper into your stillness. Let your actions, your purpose, and your peace do the talking. The masculine man doesn't chase what's uncertain. He attracts it back through consistency and inner strength. When you embody that kind of energy, silence no longer feels like loss. It becomes your most powerful form of leadership, and ultimately, the thing that reignites her attraction. When a woman stays silent, It's rarely because she has stopped caring, it's because she's processing. Silence for her is not always rejection, it's reflection. She needs space to understand her emotions, to balance the conflict between her mind and her heart. Many men misinterpret this as indifference, but in reality, her silence often holds deeper meaning than words ever could. It's a pause, a moment of emotional recalibration, and during that pause, she's observing not only her feelings but also your reaction. The way you respond to her silence will tell her everything about your emotional strength, your patience, and your self-control. When she pulls back, she's giving herself time to feel the loss of your presence. She's measuring what life feels like without your energy. At first, she might feel relief, especially if there was tension or conflict. But as time passes, her mind starts to wander. She begins to remember the things that made her feel seen, the calmness you brought, or the stability she once had in your presence. These reflections don't come through constant communication. They emerge only in silence. It's in that quiet space that she starts to realize what's missing. That's why her silence, though painful, is often the path to her realization. The key is for you to stay composed during this phase. If you panic and chase, you interrupt her emotional process. You rob her of the space she needs to rediscover your value. But if you remain patient and focused on your own growth, you allow the silence to work in your favor. Every day you stay calm and consistent, her perception of you begins to shift. She starts to feel your absence more deeply, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't. Your stillness and self-control become a quiet statement, a statement that says, I don't need to beg to be understood. I know my worth. That kind of confidence creates a gravitational pull that words can't match. Over time, her silence becomes heavy. She starts to wonder what you're thinking, whether you've moved on, whether you still care. This uncertainty builds emotional tension, and that tension often reignites her curiosity and attraction. But the truth is that only happens when you maintain your composure. A man who breaks the silence out of fear loses mystery. A man who embraces it with strength gains respect. Her realization happens not because you chased her back, but because you showed her, through your patience, that you're not emotionally dependent. That kind of strength makes her feel safe to return. It's also important to understand that women often communicate emotionally, not logically. They need time to sort through how they feel before they can express it clearly. When she stays silent, she's trying to make sense of her own emotions to see whether what she feels for you is genuine or just nostalgia. Your role is not to interfere with that process, but to embody stability while she figures it out. You focus on yourself, your goals, your health, your peace. That growth becomes energy she can feel, even from a distance. In time, her silence becomes a mirror. The more you rise, the more she reflects. The more you stay disciplined, the more she begins to question her own silence. That's when realization hits, when she finally understands that your absence speaks louder than any words could. She realizes that the man who didn't chase her is the man who truly understood her. And that realization often leads to one thing: reconnection. Not forced, not begged for, but earned through patience and strength. So when she goes silent, don't see it as the end. See it as the beginning of her understanding. Her silence is the space where she rediscovers what you meant to her. And if you've stayed centered, confident, and purpose-driven throughout that time, her realization will not just be emotional, it will be profound. Because she'll finally see the difference between a man who reacts and a man who leads with quiet strength. And that's the moment silence stops being distance and becomes the bridge back to you.